Are you a versatile drummer?
Or are you a specialist?
Hi, I'm Felipe.
And I'm the other Felipe.
Welcome to the other Felipe. And before we start, let me clarify. Yes, I only have this jacket.
And I only have this one. I have loads of black shirts.
Okay.
Well, they wouldn't notice anyway.
Yeah, exactly. We'll have to believe him. So the question is, are you a versatile drummer? Are you a specialist? What is it to be a specialist anyway, you know? So we were kind of having a conversation before the video, and there are people who we think are specialists, but they're maybe very versatile. Would you like to start this subject today?
That stuff. Well, I think I'd like to start maybe talking about how I started to approach that topic. Like,
Okay.
I started as a specialist, I think. Like I used to play British rock because I was playing for fun. So I was into Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, those kind of bands. And at a certain point in my life, I had to make a decision and choose a career, and I became a musician. So guess what happened? People asked me to play samba and funk and jazz, and I was like, I can't play those things. And I had to learn on the go. So I had to learn on rehearsals and even on stage, trying to figure out the best way to do something. And I realized that being a specialist was good for some stuff, but it wouldn't help me with those music situations.
Would you put like specialists are amateurs and versatiles are professionals?
Not at all.
Okay.
You can play just one style, and even more than that, you can play with one band for your whole career and only do that kind of music and be a professional. What is a professional? Professional is someone who makes a living out of something. So
Yeah.
if you earn your money out of playing drums, and that's your full-time occupation, and that's your professional life. So if you're playing drums for AC/DC, and you only play for AC/DC your whole life, like
Like the AC/DC drummer,
Yeah.
Phil Rudd.
yeah, exactly. Phil Rudd might not have played other styles, I don't know, but he probably only played AC/DC. And you can't say he's a bad drummer, first of all.
No, it's perfect for AC/DC. Same thing with Charlie Watts and the Rolling Stones.
Exactly. So those guys, you can call them specialists in that style, or even more specialists for those bands. And they're great in what they do. So I don't think it's bad to be a specialist. And I don't think it's...
It's just probably harder to find work, probably.
Yep. If you're not playing for the Rolling Stones of AC/DC, you might have to be a bit more versatile.
Yeah, I guess that job's taken.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, I'm certainly not auditioning for them because they didn't call me. So.
But there was one thing we were discussing before, which is the fake specialists. Like, for example, if you think of Newport from Rush, he's been playing. He first appeared with Rush in the early 70s, and then he retired last year, and he only played with Rush.
It's a long career.
It's a long career. So he is perceived as a specialist because he plays that kind of music. And unfortunately, we don't have information of anything he has done different from Rush, because even when he played with Buddy Rich Big Band, he was kind of playing like he was playing with Rush.
He was playing with Rush, yeah. Although here's the thing, how versatile is he as a drummer for one band? You know.
True.
Because he doesn't necessarily sound the same in every album, does he?
No.
So he did some research, he got into jazz. People might say, oh, he's not really a jazz drummer. He doesn't have to be a jazz drummer.
No, he doesn't.
But he's learned some stuff from jazz that made his rock drumming sound better or more interesting or a bit different.
And even in the mid early to mid in the mid 80s, early to mid 80s, first in the early 80s when Spirit of Radio, they incorporate a bit of reggae in the middle of the song.
Yes.
And then in the mid 80s, they were kind of electronic sounding with computers and keyboards and stuff, and he kind of played to that kind of music.
Exactly. So if you play, even if you play for one band for your whole life, either if just this is your job or if you have this band with your friends, you might want the band to sound different in every album or every gig or every tour. You want to do something different. So the way to achieve that is to learn different styles, like to open your mind for different kind of play. I don't think Rush decided to learn reggae for those few bars in one song. They probably got into reggae before that, and they learned a few fills and grooves
Yeah,
from that style, and then decided to incorporate that to the music.
I've never actually, my fault, I've never actually heard or read anything about that specific thing. But I know that when the police came up on the scene, they were very impressed, especially Newbeard. He was very, very, very impressed with the police and especially with Stuart Copeland, playing his approach to drumming.
Yeah, who is an interesting guy to talk about, because is he versatile or is he a specialist?
He might be a specialist in drumming, but he's a versatile musician because he's not just a drummer.
Right. You told me some stuff about. I knew he was a songwriter, like a composer for soundtracks and stuff like that, but I didn't know which other instruments he played. So
Yeah,
tell us about
well, he like my fault again. What's his latest band name? Gizmo Drum. Gizmo Drum. Yeah, with Adrian Beaulieu on guitar and Mark. Oh man, how stupid am I? From Level 42 on bass, and it's called Gizmo Drum, and he plays guitar. He plays drums in the album. He plays drums and guitar, but live there's a drummer and he plays half of the gig playing the guitar, and the other half playing drums.
I didn't know he plays guitar, so that's another thing.
Maybe he didn't know he played guitar.
I think he did. Yeah, so that's another way to be versatile, and it's like knowing more than one instrument. And if you know another instrument, that means another language inside music.
Exactly.
And that means you might be better at a different style. You might be like a good funk drummer and play jazz on guitar, whatever. Learn from another style in a different instrument and bring that to your.
I'm always for learning another instrument for many reasons. One, the most obvious one is drums have a very specific language that's completely different from the other instruments' language. And in a band, you usually have one drummer. Yeah. So if you are in a band that had two drummers, you can talk drumming with somebody else. But if you're the only drummer in the band and there's a guitar player, you cannot talk drumming to the guitar player. And then the guitar player will say to you, "Oh, when I play the G, play a crash cymbal." If you have no idea what a D looks like on the guitar or what the D sounds like or what the G is.
Yeah, exactly. So that's an interesting point, because if you don't understand chords and scales and stuff, you might be a versatile drummer to a certain point, but then you're not versatile enough as a musician because you don't understand the language of the other musicians.
And we play in an environment that you need to understand the other instruments.
Yeah.
The blues jams.
Oh yes.
Because if you don't understand what the blues is, what's the core structure of a blues?
Yes, exactly. When people say we're going to play a 12-bar blues, yeah, but how do you play the chord progressions inside those 12 bars?
Exactly.
If you can just count blocks of 4, you can do that.
Or sometimes a person says, "Let's play a slow blues in C, but let's start from the turnaround."
Yeah. Oh, then that's an interesting point. You're talking about blues, and being versatile, being a specialist. That's an interesting thing. I know people, and I play with people who only played blues for their entire careers, and they have a career in blues, which doesn't mean that they can't play other styles. They can, but the fact that they decided to focus on blues, they've learned so much about this style. And then you get into a rehearsal or a gig with them, they're going to ask for a specific groove from a specific blues song from that specific artist and say, oh my God, I never heard that album. So it's not like I wanted to play a Texas Shuffle. Oh, can you play a Texas Shuffle, but exactly like in that song by Freddie King or someone else? So which song is that? Like, which album is that song? So people who are specialists in a certain style, they tend to know the albums and the artists from that specific style.
But even though talking about something very specific like the blues, there's versatility in the blues, because somebody come to you and say, you have the slow blues, the shuffle, right?
Yeah.
But you have swing,
and you have country blues.
You have country blues.
You have Bo Diddley.
You have Bo Diddley. You have rumba.
Yes, rumba is a bit too Latin for blues, isn't it? So if you played in a Latin band before, and you play in a blues situation, they ask you to play a rumba, that's going to sound a bit more authentic.
Yeah.
And people are going to enjoy that. And again, if you think, no, I'm a blues drummer, so I don't need to learn Latin rhythms.
I just need to learn the shuffle. Yeah.
And then people ask you for a rumba and say, oh, well, my rumba's not that good. On the other hand, if you're playing in a rock band and your shuffle is not that good, you might struggle to play some stuff. Songs like Black Knight by Deep Purple, that's a shuffle fill.
It's a shuffle fill. Tie Your Mother Down from Queen is a shuffle fill.
So those guys, they knew their shuffles really well.
Really well.
So
well, the famous Rosanna from Toto is a halftime shuffle. So if you don't know the halftime shuffle,
which John Bonham played as well with Led Zeppelin.
With Fool in the Rain.
Fool in the Rain, that song. And interesting, that's that shuffle is more famous, is more well known as the Purdy shuffle. Bernard Purdy, who is a session drummer, that shuffle is usually named after him because he used it in several recording sessions. Again, Bernard Purdy is not a guy you're going to see playing double pedal. It's not a guy you're going to see playing loads of modern styles, but isn't he versatile?
I think he's the best case of the specialist who became. He can play anything, right? But I think he's the best description of a specialist. He is called to be Bernard Purdy.
Exactly. You want his personality.
Exactly.
Well, that's the thing. Let's say if you force yourself to be versatile in a way that's not natural, like I need to know everything about every style, there's only a certain amount of time you have to practice stuff. And
life is too short.
It is too short. We're full of deadlines for everything, and the ultimate deadline is death.
Exactly.
One day you're gonna stop learning because you're not gonna be alive anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Ooh. So there's a certain amount of things you can learn with the time you have in your hands, and what happens is if you decide to go for a certain style because someone told you have to go for that, and you want to force that style into the kind of music you play, if that's not natural, that might sound a bit stupid and useless,
Yeah, the thing is, you have to know how to be versatile, how to pick something from one style and put it in the style of music you're making. And I think there's a very good example. We were talking before we started to run the tape. Yes, I'm old, running the tape.
We're recording everything on tape in case you don't know.
Yeah. And we're uploading on YouTube with the tape.
With the tape. Very modern technology.
Exactly.
You guys don't know about
So Alex Van Halen, he's known for being the drummer for Van Halen, right?
Yeah.
And just like Neil Peart, he's never done anything outside the band. Well, Neil Peart has done a couple things outside the band, but he still played like Neil Peart. But Alex Van Halen never played anything outside the band.
But he doesn't necessarily sound as Alex Van Halen in every song, does
Exactly. And the other thing is, for years and years and years before Van Halen became Van Halen, he was a drummer in a functions band. And in functions, nowadays it's more R&B, or the function bands are more R&B oriented.
Yeah, a bit soul, like House of Motown. But
exactly. But back in the 70s, it would be anything, and you needed to be prepared for any kind of gig. So he learned, and also lived in Southern California, he learned the Latin stuff. And then he adapted that Latin stuff into Van Halen, which is a heavy rock band. So if you listen to a song called Dance the Night Away from their second album, the cowbell pattern is a Latin cowbell pattern. And then later in the probably their most famous song, Jump, when is the guitar solo in the song, he's playing a Latin rhythm but with a rock sound. But it is a Latin rhythm. If you pay attention to the drums, if you have the chart of the drums, if you look at it, you're gonna see it's a Latin rhythm. Obviously, it's not gonna be exactly like a mambo or a salsa, but it's gonna be adapted to that environment. And to adapt that to that environment, it must be something you already know how to play. As you said before we started filming, it's not something he learned in the studio
for that song.
Exactly.
I don't think it's I'm gonna learn this part and right here, right now, because we need to do something different in that part of the song. He played those things before with function bands. He knew that kind of style. It's part of your vocabulary, isn't it? And obviously, everything you've learned from any style you've ever played becomes part of your vocabulary. And if you know if you spend some time playing with a blues band, some time playing with a samba band, and some time playing with a funk band, if you invest your time playing like in real life situations with those guys in different styles, those ideas are going to come more naturally into your playing. So you might feel like you can play a funky vibe in a more straight rock song, and it kind of it might sound good, but you don't necessarily have to overthink the process of I want to be versatile. It's like, well, I have this idea, I've played this before, I want to try it, and it might work in a certain song. So, but that makes me think about another aspect. Is it like, even a versatile drummer, do they have one main style? Do you think that happens from?
Yeah, everybody starts from somewhere, you know. You started with rock. I started with rock because that was the kind of music that was playing on the radio when we started playing drums. Nowadays, I have students that are in their mid-teens, and what they listen is what's playing on the radio, which is R&B and hip hop. So that's what they listen to. And before the 1970s, before even the 1960s, it was jazz. So you start from somewhere.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point. Is I believe, I might be wrong, okay? I believe your first style in music is like your first language.
Yeah.
It's gonna define your accent, and you can't get rid of it.
No, you
no
can't.
matter how you try.
I know because I've been called for some jazz gigs.
Yeah.
I played it. It wasn't like, how can I say, if somebody transcribed what I played, it was correct. But I don't sound like a jazz drummer.
Well, because you didn't spend like many years listening and playing constantly the same style. So there's no, that again is I tend to think as music as a language. So if you listen to Spanish or German or French your whole life, you listen to that thing hours and hours and hours every day. That's your first language. And then you're going to learn English, or you're going to learn any other second language. You still think in your, for some time you're going to still think in your original language, your first language. And you're going to still have the influence of that language for the rest of your life.
There's a thing that is and the same thing with drumming and language is there's a certain set of muscles that work in a certain way to speak English, and they work in a different way to speak Latin-based languages. And they move in a different way, and they work in a different way to speak Japanese or Chinese. So unless you're brought up bilingual or trilingual, as some people I know, I know people who were born in London and speak English as a Londoner, one parent was Italian and they speak perfect Italian without accent, and the other parent was French and they speak French without accent,
Yeah.
right? Unless,
But then because you didn't have one specific first language,
Exactly,
you had
yeah.
two or three
Exactly.
since the beginning. Yeah.
but
So-
unless that's the case, you were always gonna have some accent.
So translating this to music, if you were into, let's say, since you started drumming, you were into funk, blues, and heavy metal, which are not necessarily similar. You can be very good at those styles, but I don't think anyone is.
Nobody actually starts with those many styles.
Yeah, it's a bit hard, isn't it?
Because I remember when I started 1 billion years ago.
I wasn't born.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. The not only rock was on the radio, but the kind of rock that was on the radio was heavy rock.
I see.
Okay, so that's and so all I listened to was Van Halen, Iron Maiden, Kiss, and other bands that don't exist anymore, like Quiet Riot and many others, right? And you tend to, as a teenager, you tend to be with people who like the same thing you like, and listen to the. So all I listened to was those things, and somebody would bring this obscure metal band from England, Sirith Ungle. Yeah,
Never heard of that.
I'm not making this up. Look on Google.
Are they on Google? Are they even on Google?
Probably, yeah. Or a band that they're still playing. They just played Brazil last week. Saxon.
All right, yeah.
Okay, so
Those guys I know.
So that's all you hear, right? And then you develop that language. And then again, same thing happened to me. One day I got this job to play a gig where the first song was a bossa nova, which I had never played before.
So what did you do? Like, what do you do?
Well, I knew where 1 and 2 were, and that.
Yeah.
So the one was the bass drum, 2 was the snare drum.
And go for it.
I went for it. Wasn't right. Probably didn't sound good. But at the end of the gig, the guy, the guitarist, was the boss. Said, I tried to practice a little bit more, Brazilian rhythms.
Yeah.
And that's how I started.
So that's an interesting thing. I had the same sort of stuff. Like I was a rock drummer, and my first professional band was an instrumental band, playing mainly jazz standards and Brazilian music. And I was like, wow, I don't know that stuff the way I should. So I've learned from the other musicians, not from drummers. I've learned from the bass player, the guitar player, how to groove in those styles. And obviously you can use a bit of that in your pop rock playing. But I think there's a relation about, you can't actually define very clearly, now that we're having this conversation, I can't actually define what is to be a specialist and what is to be versatile, because most specialists, they are more versatile than we tend to think.
Yeah,
they are.
but
they are.
But there are people, for example, like Buddy Rich.
Yeah.
Buddy Rich was Buddy Rich.
Yeah.
He would play
He was
like
a
that.
specialist
He was
in
a
Buddy
specialist.
Rich.
Yeah, he was a specialist in being Buddy Rich. Okay.
He did it really well.
Yeah, he did it. There's a band I like a lot. The band doesn't exist anymore, but there was a band I like very much called Band Folds 5, and they have a song called I Do the Best Imitation of Myself. And Buddy Rich used to do the best imitation of himself. And, he was a specialist, but he was able to make a career of being a specialist.
Yeah.
For example, on the other spectrum, you get a guy like Vini Colaiuta, a guy who plays jazz, funk, rock, even recorded a metal album with Megadeth.
Yeah, that's another level of versatility, isn't it?
Yeah. Another guy that's very versatile But also, it's versatile. But you know, there's so much time you can learn stuff, right? So Steve Smith, he's a jazz drummer who ended up playing in Journey for years and years and years in the 80s.
Yeah.
He recorded some rock albums.
And at that time, he was only known as a rock drummer.
And at that time, he was
German
only
drummer
known as a rock drummer. And then, nowadays, he does both things. He has his jazz stuff,
Yeah.
and he's also playing with Journey
Yeah,
again.
he's back with the band. And
Yeah.
some people who met him after that, after he released these drumming DVDs and stuff, they know him as a fusion drummer or as a kind of a contemporary drummer.
Yeah.
And they tend to not see him as a rock drummer, which he is. And
Exactly.
a very, very good one.
Very, very
And
good.
I think we shouldn't be lazy and become specialists.
That's a very good word.
Yeah. Oh, I'm a specialist because I'm lazy. I don't want to learn. Or I can just stick to my
Or
style. and
people,
make a
or
career
people
out of
say
it.
I'm a specialist, but what they're really saying is I couldn't be bothered to learn anything else.
Exactly. I think being a specialist for that reason is not what you should be aiming for. And on the other hand is don't be afraid of the style in which you are a specialist, because as I said to you, I'm a rock drummer, and when I started playing professionally, I thought people are going to notice that. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
long hair, you know,
Yeah,
Led
yeah.
Zeppelin t-shirts.
Yeah.
Oh, are they going to notice I'm a rock drummer? Of course they will. And at the beginning, I was trying to hide that. I'm playing a pop gig, so function, whatever. I don't want to let them know that I'm a rock drummer. And one day, I remember I was playing for this singer. She was doing Alanis Morissette tribute, and I thought, you know what? I don't know if I can do that really well. I've learned the songs, and I got to her and said, look, I will play this in my own way because I don't think I'm versatile enough to play that kind of music. Well, not to play it maybe as well as you think I'm going to play it, because I'm a hard rock, classic rock drummer mainly. And she said, oh, that's perfect, because I love Taylor Hawkins, who was Alanis' first drummer.
Yeah. Mhm.
And he plays for the Foo Fighters. Most people don't know he had done he had that
Okay.
previous
Now,
thing.
not to drop names, but me and Taylor Hawkins, we were in school together in the U.S.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and he doesn't play only rock.
Yeah.
He plays many styles and
I can't. Yeah.
and really
I
well
can't
and
totally
really well.
believe
He was a guy that when he finished, he was a little bit ahead of me. He started a little bit before me to school. He was 6 months ahead of me. But when he left school, and then a couple months later, he turned up as Alanis's drummer. It wasn't a surprise. Everybody knew he would hit the big time.
Yeah, but there's a thing about him. Even playing that kind of pop music with her, he was heavy, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was
He
very
had
heavy.
that rock vibe, that
Yeah,
kind
he
of
did.
classic rock approach, and he wasn't afraid of that. Like
No.
he was versatile enough to play any style, but he wanted to stick to his like.
I know what you mean,
original
because
influences.
I was exactly the same. There was a period in my life that I wanted to hide that I was a rock, even though my playing showed pretty well I was a rock drummer. I wanted to hide it.
Yeah.
And but nowadays it's like one of the good things of getting older is like you become comfortable with who you are, regardless. And now, so even though back in the day I had really long, I had hair and it was really long, and the beard and everything, and I looked like a metal drummer. I pretended I wasn't, right?
So you
Yeah, and
can't
now-
fool anyone. can you?
Exactly. And nowadays that I don't look anything like a rock drummer, I make a point of saying I'm a rock drummer.
And you're proud of it. So,
Yeah, I'm proud of that.
So like
yeah.
if you can explain all this thing this topic about being versatile or being a specialist in a short phrase, I would say is like be proud of the style that makes you a specialist, and don't be lazy and try to be as versatile as you can. No, be versatile, but be proud of your origins as well. Why not?
Exactly. Yeah. What he's saying is, be a specialist on being versatile.
Is that even possible?
Cool.
Excellent.
I hope you liked. Thank you very much.
Thank you. See you next time.
See you next time. Please subscribe to the channel. Click on the bell so you can get some
Notifications.
Thank you very much. So click on the bell so you can get notifications about whenever there's a new video on the channel.
Share the video.
Share the video. Share the link.
Share your love.
Share
the
your
drumming.
life. Share drumming. Share your knowledge.
Yeah, and be versatile.
And be versatile.
And a specialist.
And a specialist. Thank you. Bye.